He brought out a very sharp kitchen knife. "I'm going to end it all today," he said, and then, without a second thought, he stabbed himself at his stomach. As if that wasn't enough, he stabbed himself again. And this time, he let out a very loud scream that echoed through the whole building. His loud scream waked his wife Esther up, who was still sleeping in the sitting room, and then he collapsed to the floor with blood flowing the whole floor. Once upon a time in the southern part of Nigeria, there lived two couples, Joseph and Esther. Joseph was super rich and they had everything money can buy. They were living happily with their luxurious lifestyle. Joseph, being the richest man in the town, was known by everyone for his generosity, and his wife Esther was known for her beauty. But in the midst of everything, their marriage wasn't a happy one. They lacked one thing and one thing only: children. Joseph and Esther had been married for 15 years without a child. Everyone in the town always lay the abuse on Esther, saying she had bewitched her husband Joseph, making him to forget about marrying another woman that can give him an heir. Everywhere Esther goes, she could hear people whispering different abusive words to her, though no one have ever confirmed that she's barren. "She has eaten all the children she was supposed to bear," one would say. "A witch, no doubt," another added. Esther bore the insults with silent dignity, but the pain was like a knife twisting in her heart. She prayed fervently, fasting and seeking solace in her faith. Yet the heavens seemed silent. Home things were worse. Mama Ifeoma, Joseph's mother, was relentless. She visited often, her sharp tongue leaving no room for peace. She would call her names and sometimes even try marrying another wife for Joseph. One evening, as Mama Ifeoma was on her way to Joseph's house, she made up her mind. She was going to chase Esther out of her son's house and marry him another wife. As she approached their house, she began shouting, "Where is that witch? Come out now!" When Esther heard her voice from the upstairs, she knew her mother-in-law had come to give her another insults. She came downstairs and met her in the sitting room. "Esther, pack your things and leave my son's house," Mama Joseph said. "You're wasting his life. 15 years, no child. What kind of woman are you? You have bewitched my son." "Mama, please," Esther pleaded, tears pooling in her eyes. "Don't, Mama, please me. If you can't give me grandchildren, leave and let a real woman take your place." Joseph entered just in time to witness his mother throwing Esther's bags and clothes outside the house. "That's enough, Mama," he said firmly, his voice carrying the authority of a man who wasn't used to being disobeyed. "But Joseph, sometimes I wonder if truly you are the Joseph I gave birth to. There's no doubt, this evil woman has bewitched you." "I said enough," Joseph shouted. His tone left no room for argument. Ah! Esther, you have charmed right. You have chained his spirit, but it's me and you. I can't sit here and watch you render my son useless," Mama Ifeoma said as she left the room, muttering curses under her breath. As Joseph continued to protect his wife, his patience began to fade away. The idea of having everything he needs and not having an heir who could inherit his wealth when he's no more was too much to shake off. What was the point of all his wealth if he had no one to inherit it? The pressure mounted. Joseph began spending more time at his businesses, avoiding the tense atmosphere at home. When he was home, he was distant, his once kind words replaced with sharp remarks. One day, Joseph finally voiced what had been on his mind for years. "Esther," he said over breakfast, "I think we should see a doctor. It's time we found out what's really going on." Esther nodded, relieved and terrified. "That's a great idea, my husband, at least to confirm where our problem is coming from," Esther replied. The funny thing here is that, as all those things were going on, Joseph and Esther never bothered to visit the hospital to know the true cause of their problem, which means that this was their first time going to the hospital. The hospital was one of the best in the region, its walls gleaming white and its corridors bustling with activity. Joseph and Esther underwent a series of tests. Days later, they returned for the results. The doctor, a middle-aged man with a compassionate smile, cleared his throat. "Mr. and Mrs. Joseph, the results are in. And I must tell you that," he hesitated. "Go on," Joseph urged, his impatience palpable. The issue lies with you, Mr. Joseph. Your sperm count is extremely low, which makes it difficult to conceive naturally. The words hung in the air like a thundercloud. That's impossible, Joseph roared. You must be mistaken. I assure you the results are accurate, the doctor said gently. This is a lie, Joseph accused, turning to Esther. You and this doctor are in this together, aren't you? Esther gasped. Joseph, how can you say that? But Joseph was already storming out of the office, his mind a whirlwind of denial and rage. Over the next few weeks, Joseph dragged Esther to 3 more hospitals, consulting different specialists. Each time the results were the same. Finally, the truth became undeniable. Joseph was infertile. The realization crushed him. For years, he had blamed Esther, allowing his mother and the town to vilify her. Now he knew it had always been his fault. At home, Joseph locked himself in his room for days, emerging only to snap at Esther. The day he managed to come outside the room, he went to the beer parlor near their home, spending the whole day drinking alcohol just to wave away his problem. When he returned in the evening, he had already drunk himself to stupor. His wife Esther was shocked, since they married Joseph have never tested an alcohol, and seeing him drunk was the biggest surprise of her life. Joseph, what are you turning into? Why are you so drunk? Esther said. Woman, don't you get it? The doctors, they said I'm not worthy to be a man. What is the value of my wealth if I don't have someone of my blood to inherit it when I die? Joseph replied and walked out on Esther, then went into the bedroom. That night, Esther couldn't even sleep with Joseph in their matrimonial bed because of how bad Joseph was smelling, so she had to spend the night in the sitting room. The next morning, when Joseph woke up, he sat up on the bed, waking up to the reality of his problems. As he sat on the bed, something hit him on his mind. This pain is too much to bear. He said to himself, what is the point of living this useless life? He said again as he sat up from the bed and walked towards the kitchen. When he got to the kitchen, he brought out a very sharp kitchen knife. I'm going to end it all today, he said, and then, without a second thought, he stabbed himself at his stomach. As if that wasn't enough, he stabbed himself again. And this time, he let out a very loud scream that echoed through the whole building. His loud scream waked his wife Esther up, who was still sleeping in the sitting room, and then he collapsed to the floor with blood flowing the whole floor. Esther jumped up from the couch where she was sleeping and ran towards the direction to which she heard her husband's voice. Jesus Christ! Joseph! 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 What have you done? Hope it's not what I'm thinking. Oh! Esther cried as she rushes to the kitchen. And when she got to the kitchen, she was shocked. She saw Joseph. He was lying on the floor with a knife piercing his stomach and blood all over the place. Esther let out a very loud scream and burst into tears. Joseph, what have you done? How could you do this to me? Joseph, why? 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 Esther cried out, just as she was still holding Joseph's hand and her hand stained with blood. The door opened and behold Mama Iphioma. Oh my God, Esther, what have you done? You killed my only son. You, this evil woman. Mama Iphioma shouted as she grabs her phone and turned on her camera and started recording the whole incident. Mama, what did you just say? That I killed my own husband? Esther replied. Oh. Shut up, don't even deny your evils because I already have a video of you. Mama Iphioma says as she calls the police on Esther without even listening to her own part of the story. As they wait for the police to arrive, Esther tried explaining the whole incident to Mama Iphioma, but she was already paying deaf ears to her. Mama Iphioma had concluded, Esther killed her son. Mama, I'm innocent, I didn't kill Joseph. How can I possibly kill my own husband? Esther explained innocently. Ooh, shut up, I don't know that for many years, my son had been married to a serial killer. I saw this coming, I warned Joseph, but he couldn't listen to me. Now this is the result. But I promise you, you must pay for this. You must be killed just as you killed my only son. Mama Iphioma replied. Mama Iphioma wasn't even aware that Joseph and his wife visited so many hospitals some days ago, and wasn't also aware that the results had confirmed that Joseph was infertile, which is the main reason he committed suicide. But when Esther tried explaining all those things to her, she accused her of cooking up those stories as a backup to defend herself. Some minutes later, a group of policemen arrived with an ambulance, Mama Ifioma handed Esther over to them, accusing her of killing Joseph. It was also then that the policeman discovered that Joseph was not really dead. He was still breathing. They immediately rushed him to the hospital for treatment, and Esther was arrested on the other hand. As Joseph was receiving treatment in the hospital, Esther was detained and locked up for questioning in the police custody for a crime she knew nothing about. Mama Ifioma followed the policeman to the hospital where Joseph was being treated. As the medical team works to save Joseph, Mama Ifioma sat in the waiting room, praying so hard for God to save her only son. After what felt like an eternity, a doctor emerged from the emergency room. His face carried the weight of bad news. "I'm sorry, madam. We did everything we could, but he lost too much blood before he arrived." The words hit her like a sledgehammer. She let out a heart-wrenching cry, collapsing to her knees, and then she fell down on the ground unconscious. After some hours, Mama Ifioma regained consciousness and starts crying out, "Where's my son, Joseph? He's my only son. I'm finished. Esther has killed me. I want to see his dead body." He cried out. "Madam, you just have to be strong. This is not the end of the world." One of the doctors said, "Madam, we promise you justice. Your daughter-in-law will not go free for her evil crime. We will left no stone unturned." One of the policemen said, "In the police custody, Esther was tortured. She was left in the prison yard, starving her for many days." "Woman, are you ready to say the truth?" a policeman said to her. "Officer, I'm innocent. How can I possibly kill my own husband? I'm innocent." Esther replied, "Shut up. The evidence your mother-in-law showed us is enough to convince us that you are evil," the policeman said. Few days later, Esther was judged in the court and was found guilty after Mama Joseph showed the court the recording of the incident that she had on phone. Esther was sentenced to death by burning for murder. She cried and cried, telling the chief judge that she's innocent, recounting how her husband Joseph had killed himself after the doctors confirmed he was infertile, and even showed the court their medical results from the hospitals they visited days before Joseph committed suicide. But the evidence in Mama Ifioma's phone was beyond everything. Esther's execution day was fixed. On this day, she would be burnt to ashes in the very eyes of everyone. Mama Ifioma was happy with the judgment passed to Esther by the judges. However, on the day of her execution, something very shocking happened. There was a very heavy rain throughout the day, forcing the judges to postpone Esther's execution, giving her another 24 hours to live. That night, as everyone went to bed, something unbelievable happened. Esther had a dream. In the dream, she saw Joseph crying in pains. "I'm sorry, my lovely wife. I did this because I thought all my hope is gone. Now I'm here regretting everything. If only I waited," Joseph said. "Joseph, what have I done to deserve this? Have you seen the pains I'm going through? I have been condemned to death for a crime I know nothing about." "Joseph, why?" Esther cried out. "No, you are not going to die. Go to the house." There was a secret CCTV camera hidden all over the rooms, including the kitchen. "This was only known by me. There on the records, you will find evidence to prove that you are innocent," Joseph said, and then vanished through the night. That same night, Mama Ifioma also had a dream. In her dream, she saw Joseph calling her name and crying in pain. "Mama, Mama, what have you done? Why do you want to kill 3 innocent people?" Joseph cried out. "My son, I'm just trying to give you the justice you deserve," Mama Ifioma replied. "Justice, you said, by killing my wife and my 2 innocent kids." "Mama, Esther is innocent. It was all my fault. I don't want anything to happen to her and my unborn twins. Save her, Mama, save her, she's innocent," Joseph said, and then disappeared into the air. The next morning, Mama Ifioma rushed to the police station where Esther was locked up, requesting that the judges should withdraw the judgment passed on Esther as more investigation needs to be carried on. For the first time, Mama Ifioma calmed herself down and listened as Esther narrates what really happened on the day of Joseph's death. After this, both of them narrated the dreams they had to each other. And when the hidden CCTV camera was checked, as was said by Joseph to Esther in the dream, everyone was shocked. Joseph killed himself, and Esther is innocent. Esther was immediately released, and Joseph's dead body was buried. After the burial, Esther woke up one day, feeling weak and dizzy. At first she thought maybe it's the trauma she had faced for the past few days, but as days went on, it persisted to the extent that she couldn't even do the minor work she do at home every day. She visited the hospital to know what was wrong. After undergoing some series of tests, the doctor confirmed she was 2 weeks pregnant. This was a call for celebration for Esther, but at the same time, a sharp pain reminding her of how her husband Joseph had died. That evening, as Esther sat alone in the sitting room with Joseph's picture, crying heavily, "Joseph, if only you waited. If only you know the plan God had for us. My husband, how I wish you were patient. We would have celebrated this beautiful moment together. Rest well, my lovely husband," Esther cried out. The next day, when Mama Ifioma visited and Esther told her about the news, she could help but cry. If only Joseph had waited, if only he was patient. "My dear, Joseph predicted your pregnancy in my dream, he told me," Mama Joseph said. And then, overwhelmed with guilty, Mama Ifioma fell to her knees, her face etched with remorse. "Esther, I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I must ask for it anyway. I was wrong to treat you the way I did. Joseph's death is on my conscience." Esther looked at the older woman, her eyes filled with a mix of pain and compassion. "Mama, I forgave you a long time ago. Holding on to anger won't bring Joseph back." The two women embraced, their shared grief forging a fragile bond. As the months passed, Esther's pregnancy became a beacon of hope in her otherwise dark world. She began to prepare for the arrival of her child, pouring her energy into creating a nurturing environment. 9 months later, when the time came, Esther was rushed to the hospital. Hours of labor culminated in the birth of not one but 2 beautiful babies, a boy and a girl. She gave birth to 2 bouncing twin babies. She named the boy Godstime and the girl Patience, each name a testament to the journey she and Joseph had endured. As the twin grows, Mama Ifioma, now a doting grandmother, became a constant presence in Esther's life. She spoiled the twins and often spoke to them about their father, ensuring his memory would live on. The whole town watched as Esther, once the subject of ridicule, became a symbol of resilience and grace. She transformed her pain into strength, dedicating herself to raising her children and giving back to the community. And the story of Joseph was passed down to generations, a story of the true reason why you should be patient in everything you do, and wait for your time to come. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe and see you in our next story.